Greetings to all windshield repair people on the Facebook group, Windshield Repair Only. This is Ron Barch, one of the administrators, with the long-awaited video that I've been promising. Just shows some of my equipment and some of my techniques for those of you who might be interested. The brake that you just saw was a combination brake, a bullseye star, which all of you have seen, and which in this clip I'm going to show. I'm going to fill that brake with water with a little eyedropper, which is what I'm doing at the moment. This is the drilling technique that I use, which is the next step after the dry out. And what I'm going to do here is hold the bit or the drill at an angle first, which starts it out because the edge or the shoulder of the bit is where the sharpest flutes are. Now I'm going to put it in the upright position and rotate slightly as I drill, because that also will make it cut a little bit faster now that I've had the hole started. And I drilled to the depth of about half of the burr height itself. My drill is 12 volt, 2000 RPM, again one that I built myself. It has a lot of torque at that range, and I use a little 3.2 amp hour battery that you can buy anywhere. Okay, the next step is the one that most of you are maybe interested in, or at least some of you. It's using the dry out equipment that I build, that some have called a super sucker. First of all, I'm going to heat this brake up in a circle about the size of the suction cup that you see, and it takes about 5 to 10 seconds using a little butane torch, the ones with that pointy blue flame, very hot, so 5 to 10 seconds is plenty of time in that motion. Then I attach the suction cup and pull. One pull of this little syringe will pull about a 28 plus inch mercury. Okay, the next step that I use is I go around to the inside of the windshield and once again heat in that same circular motion, size of the suction cup or a golf ball, whichever you prefer, for another 5 to 10 seconds. And at the end of that time, this should be absolutely dry, actually about 1 to 2 minutes. And for me, the next step is to open that brake up with the punch. I will use a small punch and punch in different directions to open the brake up in the direction of the cracks that are coming out of this damage, and you can see what I'm doing. And now I will do the injection. What I use for my suction cup lubricant is just a glycerin jelly. Some of you know it as KY jelly. I get this stuff at Walmart where it's much cheaper. All right, here we're putting the lubricant on the suction cup of my little homemade or self-made, whatever you want to call it, bridge. It's a combination of many different ones that I'd seen on the market prior to my building this. It's old school, as some of you would understand it, but it served me well for over 30 years. So setting it up is easy, and you can see that there's several adjustments which allow it to be very finely tuned, not to put too much pressure on the glass, and the little tripod keeps it perpendicular to the glass, and once you get that seal set, you're ready to start injecting. Okay, to start the injection process, I will put a little resin in the cylinder, and it doesn't matter because I always take it out again, what's left over once I slide the injector off, but there again, that's a personal habit of mine. I'm going to put a little pressure on it now, and I want to turn it in, the piston, so that I just see that seal starting to expand. Much more than that, and you can create a daisy, but that kind of sometimes happens anyway if there's a delamination in that brake because of the impact or age. I will inject once, and then I will pull a vacuum with the piston, and then I'm going to inject a second time. This will get most of the air out, and will get the resin started into the radial cracks. Now I'm going to flex those cracks with a steel flex probe, and I will put the tip of the probe right on top of each radial crack as close to the center as I possibly can. If you press too hard further away from the injector, I think all of you know what can happen. Alright, now I'm going to quickly show you how I use the super sucker to vacuum air out of the brake. I simply put that little black cork, some of them are blue, into the cylinder and pull the vacuum pump out to the stops. And again, you will see that it's going to be about 28 inches of mercury. And the next step simply is to release that vacuum. You can let it on for about 1 or 2 minutes and then take everything off. And this step of the injection is simply to redo the previous processes, which means that I again put pressure on and just enough to expand that center hole in the seal a little bit. And then I again go around the whole brake with the probe on the top of each one of the radial cracks and flex thoroughly so that I can see that that resin is going to go out to the tip of each crack. This is something that you have to be a little patient with, as I again think most of you know, because that resin can flow fairly slowly if it's a tight crack, which this one is. Anyway, once you get that all done, then I would say that you can start thinking about the finish process, and that is to swing this bridge off, which will be the next video. And I am going to continue. I know this is boring probably, but I don't know how to shorten it up too much and get all the information to you that I want. But as you can see, it's taking some time. And the final step, of course, is just to swing the bridge off to the side, and I just always wipe a little of that resin out. There's going to be some air bubbles in the hole. And now the next step. And then all I do is put one little fresh drip of resin in the hole that has no air in it so that we don't get any bubbles. And the next step is first of my curing steps. I cure in 2 stages. This is just a 6-inch standard UV bulb. Some of you use LED. I don't happen to have that. I cure about 4 to 5 minutes, each of 2 stages. Okay, while that's curing the first step, I'm just going to take off the bridge. You can see that I thoroughly clean the resin off of the suction cups time. If one does not do that, you're in trouble. And then I back off the adjustments to zero it out, as I call it. And then after that cure, I simply remove the lamp and scrape off the excess resin. And my final curing step is simply use a little pit resin and the plastic protector and cure for another 4 to 5 minutes. Okay, and once my second cure is done, I will take a razor blade, as we all do, and scrape this thing off. I move in different directions just to try and keep it a little bit smoother. And once that is done, then we will be ready for the polishing. All right, I use Novus plastic polish. I'm sure many of you use others. Some of you may not at all, but I can't imagine why not. I also use just my fingers. Some of you might want to use a little buffing wheel, but I find that's unnecessary, as once the fingers are done and you use a little soft cloth, I don't think you're going to get any better polish than as if you would use a buffer. And there you go, folks, the finished product. And finally, some of you wanted to have a little closer look at the Super Sucker. Well, here it is, actually 2 of them, one with the degassing adapter in the bridge and the other with the dry out cup. And finally, folks, a demonstration of the Super Sucker in all its glory. One pull to the stops, let it lock itself out, and you have, as you can see, 28 full inches of vacuum, maybe even just a little more.